So I go, what happens if I just started making money off YouTube? And they're like, then you're making money. It's like, but it's only like, peanuts. They're like, doesn't matter. Are you making money? That's it. Once you start making money, you're using this professionally, so why should we cover you? And they will do an investigation to figure it out. So if you do have a YouTube channel, from what I understand, you're screwed. If you don't have insurance and somebody steals your camera or you get in a car accident and it all breaks, they won't cover it. Why should they? This is how they think. This puts up a lot of debate on what could be happening with a lot of people working from home, doesn't it, eh? Woo! Let's talk insurance! Yay! The most boring topic in the world, but we need to talk about it. Welcome back to another video. My name is Nikos. Today we're talking about insurance, a boring topic that's incredibly critical for you to understand, know, and be aware of things you can and cannot do so that you can make good decisions as you grow your skill set, your talent, your business, and start to make money in everything that is business. That's it. So the idea becomes very simple. Why would you need insurance? And the idea came from the questions I get from people. And they're like, hey, should I be buying the insurance on, say, the Canon R5 that I'm shooting on right now? Should I be buying it on the lenses? The companies that you buy your gear from will often have different warranties on them and add-on warranties. So the camera maker will make a 1-year warranty, and then they'll say, hey, at the store, like Henry's here in Canada, we have warranty in case something happens. We'll bypass the line and get your stuff fixed faster if you go with our warranty. Now, other companies like Vistec has diamond products that are available where they say, hey, if you drop and spill it, it's covered. And some of these products are great. I think they're totally great, especially on the convenience factor. Now with hard drives, I do this all the time. Why? Because if something were to happen, I just walk in, walk out. I have my drive. I don't have to send it to California and wait an eternity to get it back and pay for that shipping. So you see, there are scenarios where you got to look at it and say, is it good for me, my business, and my skill set? Now this video is more geared to all different aspects of insurance that you should be considering. It's not advice because everybody is a little bit different in what they need. However, it's a general understanding of what you can do as a creator, as somebody who's a small business, as somebody who's doing different aspects of maybe consulting, coaching, stuff like that. So we can look at the different scenarios of what you should be looking at so you know, hey, these options exist. The idea I'm sharing here is that every business will be different, and you should be consulting legal and accounting to make sure that, hey, I'm doing the right thing here. So you want to be breaking everything down into monthly, understand what your customers are paying, how does this all relate, and where to go forward. Now, one of the things that I've noticed over the years where I've been talking to people, oftentimes they don't have certain insurances that they need. For instance, if you're doing a shoot for a customer, you might not have the insurance to cover if anything would go wrong, or say, your camera drops and breaks, or say you're doing a shoot and the microphone stops working, and then all of a sudden you have like, $5,000 to $10,000 worth of different costs to do that shoot, and now what? Who's going to pay for that? Is the client going to pay for it? And oftentimes the clients pay for a lot of things like this and they go, yeah, okay, I get it. There's an issue. But sometimes you get sued, and I've heard some horrific stories from people, and this is why I'm making this video, because people should know about this. We should also know that you shouldn't be giving your camera out if you do have certain insurances, because they won't cover it unless the other person does have insurance. So it's always good to have insurance where you can rent equipment and they will cover different aspects for you so that you are good to go in those situations. Now, the big aspect of making this video now specifically over other times is that I do want to have a video where I can walk people through and just go watch the video and then we can talk more details. But at the same time, if you haven't noticed, up here in Canada, we just had like a few scenarios with a truckers convoy. We had a whole bunch of scenarios in different areas of just the border crossings, and people were out using their cameras. And I have a buddy that called me up and he's like, yo, maybe I should take you up on explaining to me this insurance stuff. I'm like, why? What happened? He's like, it was chaos. And yep, chaos. Now, I went out to Toronto. I was in the area. I walked down so I could take pictures of what was happening in Toronto when they had their strike there with the trucks that came in. And Toronto did a great job to kind of like make sure that it doesn't happen what happened in Ottawa, and I did get some great pictures testing out the Canon R5. It was awesome. I had a great time walking around getting these pictures done. It was -20. It was freezing. And these are a couple of the pictures as I was walking around. But I had scenarios where, people bumped into me. If I drop that camera, then what? This is the scenario you want to go through. My mic, I nudged it, and the sound notch went up, and I lost some footage or the sound for the footage. I can't use it. Why? Because it was a mistake. That happened. Now, the question becomes, what if I had dropped the camera? Then what? What if my buddy in Ottawa gets arrested? Then what? They confiscate his stuff. He's got to wait to get it back. Then what? See, there's a lot of different scenarios as photographers, videographers that people have to put into perspective in order to make sure they are achieving some security for themselves, because this is your livelihood. And now there are different scenarios here where you might just be starting out and you just have a camera that you picked up and it's $3,000. Should you get insurance? Maybe you're growing your skill set and you're starting to work with clients. Should you get insurance? You don't have a business yet, but you've maybe done a sole proprietorship and you're starting to grow. Do you need insurance? What if you're a corporation and you got clients? Okay, how does that work? What happens when you grow into bigger and bigger projects? How does that work? How does it fit the narrative when you go from pictures, photography, DSLRs, doing video, and then switching to cinema line? How does that work? So we have a whole bunch of different scenarios that everybody should be looking at to be covered, because this isn't something that is simple. I had a situation, I've had a lot of situations, but I had one situation where it really put everything into perspective, because I was out in the middle of the night doing my night photography, and just like that, it could have been game over. And you're sitting there going, there goes my gear. I could have just been punched in the face and somebody took my gear, and there goes $15,000. I was walking around, it was just like, wow, this just happened. And you're sitting there going, what next? Like, where am I going to pay for that to, pay everything back so I can buy new stuff? I'm still paying off. It was like I just recently gotten some gear, and I was like, this is a situation we should know about. What if somebody steals my car? Because sometimes I leave my gear in the car when I run in and out, to grab stuff. Then what? Oh, so we got all these scenarios, and I'm painting this picture. It's going to be a long video, and I'm painting this picture so you can put into perspective the different scenarios that could happen and why we need to be looking at insurance. If you have questions, comments, concerns, please list them below. I'll be trying to answer whatever I can. I'll make follow-up videos to this because this is an important topic, and we got to make sure we cover everything we can. Now, the idea is to give you a guide to what you should be thinking about, both if you're in Canada and the States. I'm going to be focused more in Canada because I'm in Canada, and it's much easier to go through the websites and show you the path, and then look at the US side of things so that you can see where can you go from there. There's a lot of great videos, information out there from professionals who do the whole insurance aspect of things. Now, the idea again is guide. It's not advice, it's guide, because everybody is different. Everybody needs something different, and you got to look at it and say, who do I consult with on this situation? Usually you'll go to the insurance guys and ask. I've gone to so many insurances. I'm going to walk you through the different mindset of looking at insurances, both from a perspective of the professional, the business, and the idea of the gear and how it fits the narrative. So let's jump in. I'm going to be looking at FrontRow Insurance first. These guys are a Canadian company that also provides services in the States. So I'll be showing you the state side as well. Now, the aspect here is that they break down everything easy and efficiently so you can make a selection quite quickly. The idea here is that you can come online and pick, hey, where do I classify under? And again, this is why you're looking at it and saying, what is good for me, and why I can't give you the advice here, but just guide, because there's so many different aspects of this depending on what you're doing. In fact, you shouldn't be relying on anybody other than the insurance guy to make sure you have everything covered. Now, there is the insurance for photographers here. This is the basic one that everybody should be jumping on if they're just doing photography. And then there's also the equipment insurance for film makers and gear. So the idea here would be that if you are just a photographer shooting some video and you're only using DSLRs or mirrorless, then you'd be going into this package right here for photographers. Now, once you get into the cinema line, you do need to jump up to a package like this. And then this package, you'd be looking at it and saying, okay, what am I doing between both packages? If I'm mostly focused with video, this is great. So I can insure most of my gear as a filmmaker. Now, what they do have after all of these packages, there's this DICE production insurance, and this is what they're going to gear you towards. So once you reach out to them and tell them, hey, I do film and this and that, and they're going to look at you and say, okay, let's insure you properly. So it's not going to be just your equipment and, you're going out there and just doing some video, it's like you're actually doing this as a career. So you need to really differentiate what you're doing so you don't pay too much money and you're still covered the right way. Now, there are other options like online short shoot insurance films, like 1 to 2 months. There's wedding event and venue insurance. This is something that I know many wedding photographers and videographers do not have. It's crazy. There's the wedding insurance, building baby, including baby and bridal showers, short-term event and venue. Notice how the bridal shower is not part of the whole wedding aspect. You think that you just have like, you know, but it is what it is. And then there's music instrument insurance. There's the actual office insurance. So you notice how this is all kind of broken down. Here's our short-term theater insurance. It's only in Canada. When you get into the film production, you can do like get insurance for big budgets, or you can just stick to the regular stuff that smaller budgets will do. There's the Documentary Organization of Canada programs. And of course, there's producers, errors, and omissions. So this is something that a lot of people will want to do. And a lot of these programs, like the DICE, I believe, has aspects of this in there. There's legal and expense insurance. There's theater insurance, art house insurance, insurance for art educators and art schools in Canada. There's a lot. There's a lot. So you got to look at this and say, okay, what are my purposes of getting insurance? What do I actually do, and how does this look and feel overall? So you make sure you make a good decision. When you look at the state side, it's broken down a little bit different, but still in the same kind of arena for bigger projects here. There is a WIFT U.S. insurance program, members of women in film and television. There is a producers, errors, and omissions. There's equipment insurance for filmmakers, short shoot, and U.S. event, wedding event and venue. And of course, there's a circus educator insurance, U.S. export, short-term event and venue, and then of course, the tenant use liability insurance protection. So there are other stuff. You'd have to call them in and ask all about it to see what is good for the U.S. counterpart. So if you did want to use these guys, that's the process you take. So we're going to explore 2 of these that I'd be looking at. And the reason I'm looking at this is because I have multiple businesses. And now this is the breakdown of the thought process. I do have multiple businesses. And as the businesses grow, I got to look at what insurance I need for each business. And then I have to clump them together based on what I need. So equipment's part of all the businesses. So what I'm trying to do is make an umbrella of the insurance so all companies will be affected equally and I won't have any issues. Now, as we get growing, we might be in a situation where we can now pull all our equipment out from the one specific company and make it a separate company where all the equipment is covered under there. And then we have different packages for services in different scenarios in the companies. That is something that you might be wanting to do once you get over that threshold of $30, $50, $100,000 in equipment. You definitely want to look at different ways to leverage both the security of the products you have and, of course, the idea of taxation and how taxation would work, because you can then rent to other companies. There's a lot of different situations that you can be in. Tax advisor is critical here. When we jump into the photography side of things, you're going to see the questions that come up, and you'll see a lot of them that you're kind of like, huh? But some of them are really straightforward. Do you do any videography using a camera body other than the camera body that you use for still photography? I'm going to click no here, but this is really the question of, do you have any cinema line cameras? So is it outside of the DSLR world, the mirrorless world? Is it just a cinema line? So the question would be, if you bought the new Canon R5 C, would that fall under this package or a video specific package? So we're going to click yes. We do generate income. This will not affect the outcome of how much money this is going to cost. Now, other insurances, it will. And then you have an option for Canada, US only, or standard worldwide. Now, there is a cost difference. It's not significant when you do this. So based on what you're picking, but I did see that it was negligible to go this route. Now, this is standard worldwide. I want to add it to the package in case I go somewhere. And I usually do travel. So I'm like, why call them up and be like, hey, I'm traveling. Can we adjust it? There's a fee for adjustments and this and that. So just get it and spend the money and you're good to go. Now, most people will put a different amount here for replacement value. I'm just going to go with like something like 35 grand because this will be average for people that are growing their business and they're rotating through different equipment, lights and such. So I'm going to put $35,000 there. And then you're going to look at the idea of commercial general liability. Do you need this? So I'm going to add it in both packages because I'm going to do the video side of things as well. But I'm going to do $2 million liability. The reason you want to do $2 million liability and not one, it used to be standard one, but we have gone to the place where everything's more expensive, and now the go-to for lawsuits is around $2 million. So you want to go with a little bit better than the 1 million. You still get away with one, yes, but you know, you sit there and you're like, if I'm paying, I might as well do it right. There is a replacement value for rented photography and equipment. You'll often hear me talking about rental equipment and how you should be taking advantage of that. Now, there are rental insurances when you do rent equipment, but there's situations where you might want to have added insurance so they can take care of things rather quickly instead of waiting for that rental company with their insurance to deal with this stuff. So this is always good to have. You also want to look at it in terms of, if I were to like have this insurance and I want to borrow a camera from somebody, now I'm covered if I make a rental agreement with that individual. So basically, I'm going to be able to say, here, I'm giving you money, okay, in exchange for renting your camera. I'm not borrowing it. And that monetary value could be, you know, $1, for instance. Photographer's enhancement pack, this is an optional. I'm including it in mine. Now, when you click on this, it'll give you a few options that I think are very worth it. And when I'm looking at it in terms of how worth it is, I think it's just taking care of certain aspects like that rental. So I'm not including the rental insurance for rental equipment insurance on the regular one because this offers it for you. So what you're going to get here is that agency and talent reshoot costs of 10 grand. So in the event of an insured loss, this coverage would cover additional costs incurred to pay talent required for a reshoot, or additional talent costs incurred by an advertising agency or advertiser. So you're seeing that, hey, there's going to be more money to reshoot stuff. We're going to give you some cash here. Great. Rented equipment, 15 grand. The enhancement pack includes coverage of direct physical loss or damage to rented photography equipment, subject to same terms, conditions, exclusion as own equipment. And they do tell you that if you select the other option in the regular questionnaire before selecting the enhancement, that will add up. So if you pick 15,000, you're going to get 30 in total, which is totally awesome that they double up on that. Production media apparel, 10 grand. This coverage would provide additional costs incurred for required reshoot due to direct physical loss, damage, destruction of raw film or tape, stock, exposed film, etc., 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 videotape recorders, faulty sound equipment, faulty developing and faulty editing equipment. Okay, and this is awesome because if something does go wrong, they're taking care of you, and this is what we want as people that are trying to grow our talents, skill sets, and the business. Note, the insurer will not pay for production loss if you have not fully tested the equipment. And this is a critical aspect that I want to talk about. You need to test everything. So you have to have a procedure in play that makes sense. You should call the company that you're doing this insurance with, and you got to ask them, what is your specific policy to be covered when something goes wrong? Like, what am I doing? What are the checks you want? How do I make sure I take advantage of everything I'm doing so that nothing goes wrong? Okay. Testing your cards. Have you checked your cards? Do you do a regular check of your cards? Your mics. Do you do regular check of your mics? Okay, where are you at with that? All of these have to be documented. And in fact, I'm going to be taking a step forward with, further based on what I'm doing to make sure I'm covered with everything so that in case something happens, there's no issues. Okay, this is critical because I've seen people not do their checks, something goes wrong, and then they're like, I'm not being covered. They also have options such as seizure or quarantine for 5 grand, covers loss incurred due to the actual potential impairment of an insured photo shoot caused by resulting from the seizure or quarantine of property by order of government or military authority. And this is where my buddy in Ottawa, he's just kind of like, there's insurance for that? I'm like, yeah, there's insurance for that. Like, this is great. If you had it and they took your camera, you wouldn't be worried. You'd be like, all right, you're going to keep it for how long? All right, great. I'm going to get it back in like a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. Who knows what's going to happen? All right, so at the time of this like filming, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if that's going to pass, that they can just take your stuff. So they might end up having to give everything back. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I can call the company and be like, this happened to me, and they're going to pony up 5 grand for me to go get a new camera so I can keep shooting. Ha! Great. Prop sets, wardrobe, up to 15 grand. Again, provides coverage on prop sets, scenery, costumes, wardrobe, and similar property against all risks of direct physical loss, damage, or destruction during a photo shoot. And I mean, I've been on many photo shoots where something went wrong, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I remember doing a photo shoot for this designer, and the everything got spilt, like this compound. this chemical compound in the place that we were shooting spilled on this bag that had like a lot of these dresses. And I was like, oh, who's paying for that? And it was just kind of like, you know, one of those things where you're like, man, and the main person that was running this was like, I got to figure out a solution ASAP. The designer was like, what am I going to do? And it was just kind of like this mindset of chaos. And if you have insurance, then you know how it's going to run, because you're going to call insurance and be like, hey, we got this dilemma here, and we're off to the races. Now, clearly, if you select any of these and they aren't part of the plan, they'll tell you, hey, there's no coverage under this policy. So you would be clicking no to these. Property use, this would be property use underwater, the air stunts. It's not covered under this automatic policy. Have you ever had coverage go declined or canceled in the past 3 years? No. In the past 5 years, have you had any claims paid for photography or video, et cetera, et cetera? I'm going to say no. And just to note, like, this is just for this package kind of thing. You can call them up if it says that you can't do this package because of the situation, and they'll customize something for you. This is just so you can be automated. I can have insurance for all my stuff like this. Now, the total here on the quote will be $909.50 per year. This is Canadian, so we'd have to make this US. It'll be cheaper for the US people. But the idea is that for the amount, $75 or so per month, covers so many things. Totally worth it. The cheapest I have found, and the most beneficial for creators and or people who are getting into camera work. Say you have a business, say you're looking at it and saying, I want to just go buy some equipment and do YouTube. Totally worth it. 75 bucks will go a long way for everything that you need. Plus, it includes this idea of commercial liability, which if you have a studio, an office, and all that, you're probably paying for another insurance for that general liability, because if you rent a place, you're going to need it. So this is where you think about it and go, okay, they're providing a pretty cheap rate on that idea of general liability, because usually it's more expensive on its own. When we're looking at the base premium, is $444.50 per year on that 35 grand. To break this down for you, it's not a lot of money if you think about it going plus or minus 5,000. So if you don't know 100% how much you need, so you're at $30,000 and you are thinking you might buy a lens for 3 grand, do you need to spend the extra money? And the question is, well, how much does it cost to upgrade the policy? It's around $25 or so per change. So then you sit there and you go, well, it's only $5 a month to have that extra 5 grand. Okay, so it's going up by like a decrease or go up and down by 60 grand, by $60 or so. So you sit there and you say to yourself, well, how much is it overall for me to not have to have that headache? If I buy something, I don't have to bother with anything. At the same time, you're looking at this and saying, well, you know, it's averaging on that money around $78. So you're being protected around $78 on that average there. Not the 75 in the total, but 78 on that set of money for how much you're paying. So if you're looking at other packages, that's the rate, the going rate that I've been seeing that's constant. And it's based on how they're presenting the insurance protection. The photographer's enhancement pack includes that rental of 15 grand, which is great. And it's only $121. And not bad. $10 a month. I can't complain for that, for what it's giving you. Now let's get down to the understanding of commercial general liability, because it is 254 bucks. But what does it cover? And down here, you'll see all the different add-ons that are covered by this package, which is totally great. And you want to have this. And when you click the link, it's going to walk you through the different scenarios and why you need them. Because when we talk about general liability, commercial general liability, we need to really understand what it is, and most people don't, and this is very critical. So let's see what they're offering first, and I'll explain it. Office contents coverage is office furniture, fixtures, photocopiers, office supplies, including tenant improvements done to the office space. So this is the office space that you would be renting in a building. This would be for a home office studio or small rented office studio space. Please contact us if there are higher limits needed. Now, you're going to say, well, what about home office studio? Well, I could be in my home, in which case my business is renting that space, right? So we're looking at it and saying, what is the space? Plus, we got to look at the insurance of general liability, right? Because you might be in your home, but now you're looking at it and saying, well, am I covered? Because I'm running a business. Do things change? They also offer 10 grand for additional expenses. So it covers additional expenses, including incurred due to a covered loss on an office contents, such as rental and temporary equipment. Which tells us what? This is a computer that's worth like 7 grand. If something happens to this, is it my gear? Is it covered under gear? No, it's not. This is part of the office. This is how I do my work. Now, there would be the other aspect of would the laptop cover as, you know, gear, because I do use it when I'm shooting. So I'll like hook it up so I can show people pictures and stuff like that and edit on the spot. When I'm doing a photo shoot, make sure the pictures are good. Okay, so now we have a different coverage understanding of that. And it could be gear, it could be office contents, right? So in that case, they do offer $5,000 for that laptop alone. And this is basically up to $5,000 on that. And this would be anything that is incurred within the office or outside, which is totally awesome. So if you drop your laptop, something happens, they're going to have some form of situation on that, but you need to clarify what it actually does. Okay. But we do know that if something happens in this office, it will be covered. Okay. Now, the idea is very simple with general liability, commercial liability. The reason I said go for $2 million is because something could go wrong. What then? Most properties want you to have $2 million if you are renting or leasing from them. You need to have that. Okay. So you would want to make sure you go for $2 million. Now, $1 million is common, but $2 million has become common because the price of everything has gone up. The idea would be very simple. What is general liability and how does it work? Well, this whole area, say I'm renting it and it's in my home, or it is in an office, this whole area is mine and I'm renting it. I'm responsible. So if somebody comes here for a photo shoot and they trip in the studio and they bang their head, well, the insurance claim is going to be made because I'm probably going to have to deal with, you know, lawsuits, this, that. So my insurance would take care of that. One. Two, the building is not responsible for anything because it's in my unit. However, what happens if somebody trips and falls over the carpet that wasn't fixed by the building? Well, I would call my insurance because I'm being sued, and the insurance would be like, well, what happened? Well, they tripped over the carpet that wasn't fixed. So then the insurance would go after the building's insurance. What happens if something happens outside of here? Well, I'm going to be, you know, responsible for in here. So if somebody falls outside of the building, the general liability, the onus is on the owner for maybe not cleaning the snow outside. Okay. Now, could I be involved in that? Yes, and my insurances would work that out. Why? Because I invited the person here and they could challenge some stuff like, hey, you knew they were coming. Why didn't you let us know to make sure we salt outside? Yeah, and it's like, all right. So we have scenarios where it can get really ugly and you're like, what do I do? Okay. So these are the ideas of general liability. If you're going to be looking at it in terms of how does it cover things, we need to go into the specifics and make sure we understand that. Now, the idea of coverage and contents, the general liability, if this place catches fire and it's due to, say, my computer and I am in a building, well, what happens then? Well, guess what? The insurances will basically say, hey, the fault and the onus was on me. My insurance will cover the damages up to $2 million. The other insurance of the building will work it out and they'll get the same place fixed up. However, I won't get anything replaced in here if I don't have contents insurance. Done. Because the onus was on me. So you need to have contents insurance. The equipment will be covered, but not stuff like my computer and my monitors and my desk and anything that's office related. But my gear under this plan will still be covered. So we gotta like take a step back on that. On the other side, say the fire happened on the outside and burnt everything down in here. Well, the onus would be on what? Well, I would call my insurance and I'd be like, this happened. They would cover my gear because it's under this policy. And then what would happen is that the insurance would go after the other insurance. They would give me the 10,000 or whatever it is, cover new computers, this, that, okay? And the insurance would go after the insurance of the landlord and make sure that they can recoup money back from there to pay for all the stuff that they gave me from my insurance policy. So these insurances are working in hand. Now, every area around the world will work differently with insurances, but in most cases, this is what is always kind of like going on in the background. And you got to be aware of it. And this is what I'm telling you, look at the policy, look at the situation that you have in case something happens. How does this apply in a scenario of home insurance? Well, this is where I'm looking at it and saying, if I have the studio in the house, what happens? Well, now we got a situation, don't we? Don't we? Well, the idea would be, are you working? Where's your commercial liability? Okay. Where's your gear insurance? What is your office setup? Are you claiming space? So in Ontario, we can claim space and then claim expenses on the house because we're a business operating our home. So you can claim expenses there. Hey, Nico, you're doing business. It's similar to somebody who starts making any kind of business in their home. It doesn't matter. The insurance is going to look at it and say, similar to if you're outside in a building, the insurance is going to say, All right, so why are we responsible? The home insurance. Why didn't you have other insurance? So the insurances will talk it out to figure out who's responsible in that situation. So if somebody does come over and trips over in your home studio like this, say this, in the home studio, well, it's not the home insurance that's responsible, it's your business insurance. So this is where we often forget about this. And this is where the things get tricky, because I contacted my insurance and I was like, hey, if somebody steals something from my car, okay, and I have my $10,000 camera, what happens then? And they're like, well, why do you have a $10,000 camera? I'm like, because I like to have a $10,000 camera. They're like, is it professional use? And I'm like, well, what constitutes professional use? Well, what do you do with it? I'm like, well, I go out and shoot wildlife. I do a whole bunch of stuff, all this stuff, you know? And they're like, oh, well, are you making money? I'm like, not really. And they're like, okay, but what if I was? Oh, well, then you're a professional. Okay, so what's the line there? What's the threshold? This is how I have to talk to them. I can't tell them, like, straight up, it's so hard. And they go, okay. So I go, what happens if I just started making money off YouTube? And they're like, then you're making money. It's like, but it's only like, peanuts. They're like, doesn't matter. Are you making money? That's it. Once you start making money, you're using this professionally. So why should we cover you? And they will do an investigation to figure it out. So if you do have a YouTube channel, from what I understand, you're screwed. If you don't have insurance and somebody steals your camera, or you get in a car accident and it all breaks, they won't cover it. Why should they? This is how they think. This puts up a lot of debate on what could be happening with a lot of people working from home, doesn't it, eh? So we got to take a step back. I'm making money from all of this, so I need insurance. But if I wasn't, I was just working on my YouTube stuff, man, this is like dangerous areas, isn't it? All right. Now, getting to the idea of money securities, there's a library stock here. So if anything happens, $7,500 for your portfolio, they can fix it up. And it's $15,000 for any monies or securities. Say I had a safe here and somebody stole it. And then you do have $10,000 for up to 30 days newly acquired equipment, which is great. So if I buy the new Canon R5 C, it comes up to $8,000 or whatever here in Canada, I'm covered for 30 days. I don't have to call them to add it to the plan. But in this case, I would have to figure out which plan, because R5C is a cinema line. It's not like the R5 I'm shooting on right now. When we look at the basic information for the Digigear insurer, so this is for video, they will ask you, hey, do you have mobile equipment owned? Yes, I have 25,000. You have to do a minimum for the fixed equipment that you might have in the studio. So I'm just going to go and do 5,000 here. And I'm just going to put 25,000, or you know what, let's do 30 so we can balance it out and see the difference with the other plan. And then I'm going to do commercial general liability here, 2 million. Again, I want to see how much it's going to cost. This is rental equipment, and this is mandatory. You have to add it in here, so I'm going to put 15,000. And then, do you rent or loan equipment to others? I'm going to say yes, because I want to just kind of like loan it out if I want to, because it's a cinema line. And would you like to purchase leasers contingent coverage? If so, please confirm the amount. Now, again, you're buying this and it's saying the owned equipment is covered by your policy. The equipment is lost or damaged by a covered cause of loss. And the lessee signs a standard rental lease agreement that requires that the lessee to place and maintain insurance coverage on the lease or rented equipment for their care custody. Okay? And then the lessee fails to place or maintain insurance coverage on the equipment as required by a rental or lease agreement, the insurance coverage placed by the lessee on the equipment is for less than the minimum amount. So these are different scenarios where they're going to say, hey, this is where we cover you, but the person has to have insurance, so they should have insurance. But there's scenarios where they might have had insurance, but their insurance didn't cover the scenario you're in. Then what? You're SOL. So let's not be SOL. You need to know this 100% before you lease out anything. So this is the quote, and it comes up to $975 per year. And again, the base premium is $325 for 30 grand of mobile and 5,000 for fixed. So like, again, I could have insured everything this route and gone the cinema line. It will cover the other cameras as well. But you're looking at this and saying, well, I don't have that photography aspect on there, for one. Two, the commercial liability here is $500. So they take from one side and they give it on the other side. And this is where you look at it and you go, okay, so I'm losing out on that commercial liability. So it might be better to separate everything in any case. And of course, the leaser Contingent premium is 50 bucks. And now they do have different coverages here too that you got to look at. 5,000 bucks for office contents coverage versus 10 in the other plan, 10,000 for rental and reimbursements, and then 10,000 for extra expense coverage. So if something were to happen, they're going to have 10 grand ready to go for you to apply to, say, a new camera. There's automatic coverage for equipment that newly purchased or required automatically up to a limit of 500,000. So this is very, very awesome, because you might go and buy, like, big cinema line cameras, and it's going to cost you like $150,000, so you're covered for that time being, which is great. And they only cover $5,000 on monthly security. So overall, the other package is better for those like startups. And you look at this and you get, okay, what else can I do with a plan like this? Well, what if I just said I'm going to do a camera like the 5RC and do $10,000 here? I'm going to leave this at 1,000 because it's not going to be staying in there. I'm going to decline commercial liability. I'm not going to do the rental and do loan equipment. I'm not going to lend this out because it's my 5RC. I'm going to click continue. Oh, we forgot about the rental. Let's do $1 here and continue. And this is where your base premium is $82.50. The stupid thing will pop up nonstop. $82 per year plus the $100, so $182 to insure that that camera. Which, when you look at the idea here and how it plays out, say, bring up my calculator, $82. Oops, $182 divided by 12 brings you $15 per month for peace and confidence on that 5RC, because it is a cinema line. And I want to make this very clear. The goal for you is to look at what's best for you, and these are just options. So let's jump into other options you could have if you're in Canada, and then let's jump to the States. I know this has been a long video, but I know the information is priceless. BullFrog is another insurance I went with to test out, and I wanted to see, hey, how does this work out? They do have a whole bunch of different professional liability insurances, and this is where you click on photography. There's a corporate and event photographers, fashion, freelance, portrait, videographers, wedding photographers, and on the right here, you'll see the professional liability is 330 bucks, commercial general liability is 220, and then they do have this thing of cyber and privacy liability, which you don't have in the other one. And I want to explain a few things here. The thought process of the other program is literally on those shoots, and it's literally on what you're doing there, and they have a package solution for what you're doing. However, in some cases you might need professional liability, which is something where you are consulting on, say, a project. So if you come out and you say, hey, I'm helping you out with your project here on shooting this new venue, and then they screw it up, can they sue you? Yes, they can. And then the question is, who's liable? This is where professional liability comes into play. Now, for me, I have other companies where I do other things like my coaching. So my coaching, I want professional liability because I just guide people. I guide people. But then somebody might be like, this can be construed as advice. And because it's advice, I'm going to sue you now. It's outside of my agreements of just guidance. Now I have professional liability that's going to back me up to a certain amount so that nothing goes wrong in case they're suing me, and they cover a whole bunch of stuff through that legal process. This is kind of like what doctors have, what lawyers have, what accountants have, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know if it's in all lawyers, but a lot of them. Now, when we're looking at it from a perspective of the difference with professional liability and commercial liability, again, it's what I described before for commercial, and you can see now how the professional separates, and it's around 550 bucks. You also have this idea of cyber and privacy liability insurance. Now, this idea of the cyber, there are a lot of things you have to look at in it, and you got to put into perspective before you say yes or no to upgrading. There's first-party insurance and third-party insurance. If you're collecting any stuff on your website and everything you're responsible with your website, that's first-party insurance. So you want to make sure you have enough there. So if there's a ransomware or anything like that, you need to make sure in the insurance, because they don't tell you this, they put in fine print, does it cover the costs associated with the amount the ransomware is. So if they're asking for like $1 million, do you have it? Kind of thing on a ransomware. So they don't include that in the regular policies. You need to look at that and say, when it says $50,000 coverage, it covers a whole bunch of aspects of what could happen in that scenario, but it doesn't include the money in most cases. You need to look at the fine print, see the fine print, understand the fine print, or else you will be SOL down the road. And this is where insurance takes a turn, where you see the cost of the insurance keep going up, but now you're protected and it makes more sense than anything else. Now, third-party insurance is if you're working on stuff. So maybe you're actively working on somebody's website, or you're doing any kind of work on other people's websites, something goes wrong, and then they are like, well, our customers got affected, we're going to sue you because it's your fault. So you got to look at the specifics of what you're doing. Make sure you reach out to a lawyer and the insurance brokers to make sure that everything matches up and you're covered based on what you're charging people you're going to do, because it can go down south fast. Now, the last thing I wanted to point out here with the idea of different aspects, if I was just going to do wedding photography or portrait photographers, you're going to see this price, it's averaging around the same amount for all of these. And I want to just, point out that you need to double check what is being offered here and how this looks. Because when you look at where you're working, now, again, this is going to cover it differently. Here's my Ontario, and say I do 80% Ontario here, and then say I do US or international, sorry, USA, and I do 20% here, you can see the price points change drastically. And especially if I tell them that I do most of my work traveling, and this is where you look at it and say, wow, all right, the increase, it goes up, but it's not that drastic. Now, say I go international travel and I do 50% here, and now we're going to do 20 plus 50 is 70 plus 30 for international. And again, once you get to that threshold, it's around the same. So you're looking at it and saying, what do I need overall, and where am I going over the next year? And then you'll know to change this as you keep moving. Maybe you spend more time in the US if you're from Canada, or international. And again, it's working in a similar manner with the other program, except the other program was like specific to 2 months. It was like 60 days, or was it 90 days? No, it was 90 days. So you're sitting there and you're going, okay, well, based on that specifics, how does that work out for me? Now, if there's another option, a third option on the other program, and if you're more than that amount of time, and then in that case, they're customizing it in this way, and you're going to pay a little bit more, but then you reach a threshold and you're off to the races. The mindset here is very simple. What occurs in what situation? Now, the mindset that I want you guys to understand is that depending on what kind of photography you do, this might change, and all these things may play out a little bit different. Now, there's the other aspect I want to talk about: cyber and privacy liability policies. You want to look at it in terms of where your servers are at and if the coverage will cover within there and how that all plays out. You also want to look at what kind of things are being covered and what the laws are in your state or province, because there could be scenarios like, say for instance, you're doing boudoir, and in that boudoir, somebody has really put faith in you to not show these pictures to anybody. They just want them for themselves, and then all of a sudden somebody hacks, takes these pictures, do ransom, and you're kind of like, uh-oh, what do I do? Okay. The idea would be that you have the thought process of professional liability on there as well, and the aspect of criminality of what could happen if these get released and whose onus falls on what. Because in some cases, there are the aspects of the assumptions like, is there criminal activity in this? And how did this play out? And why did this person have this hack and not anybody else? And why did they only take those pictures, for instance? Or maybe you have a whole bunch of people and they all were taken. It changes things. There are these different aspects where when I was asking the insurance guys, which I'm going to make probably another further video on this because it's very critical for everybody. Nobody knew 100% these different scenarios, the answers to. They're like, we need to reach out to other people, and I'm still waiting to hear back. They're like, yeah, these questions are very interesting, and the idea becomes, where do you fall in line with this if you're doing certain aspects or different activities in your business where it gets risky between the idea of the laws that exist within your state, province, or country, and then the idea of, is this something that's going to be a person suing you? Is this criminal? Where does this fall in line based on the investigation that will be ensued? So something to really take into consideration and think very logically before you make a move on anything. Now, lastly, I'm going to walk you through a few things with Premiere, and Premiere has something similar where they do have products and media, and this is another aspect of going through and figuring out what they offer. These were the kind of like the 3 companies I was looking at, but Premiere just gets a little bit complicated and just annoying. Now, they do have professional liability and all this other stuff. I would just be looking at it and saying, what is it that I truly need before moving forward? Now, when I'm looking at it in terms of other kind of equipment they have for other, you might have like a combination of different services. And like I do, and I do so many different things. Now the question becomes, well, what do you have in case of other businesses, and can they group it? If you can group things with an insurance, it makes your life so much easier. So this is why I'm showing you this, that you could have a business that maybe you have, you know, a whole bunch of product and you want to have everything insured and you're doing certain functions in that business, but then you are doing this video and marketing on the side and you're growing that, maybe combine everything to make sure that you're covered and you don't have any situations. In the States, there is this TCP and Co. It's a video and still production, photographer quick quote, drone and UAV quote. There's a whole bunch of different aspects here that you can look at and really put into perspective of what you need as a business growing within the US. Now, this is more for our US friends, and this is where you want to start looking at the specifics and say to yourself, what do I actually need? It is something that I've heard people use and is a good company. A lot of people will go the insure my equipment route over the TCP one. Again, a lot of people have said this is a good company and you can do a lot of the stuff online. Where when you go to TCP, you're actually going to click on this and you're going to get a walkthrough of fill in all this information and then we'll get back to you. I guess there is a quick quote that they will do after this, but I did not try because I don't live in the States. The insurance one, I believe this one is a lot faster. And again, their coverage involves rented equipment, owned equipment coverage, general liability, and music instrument. And then, of course, you can go in and ask for more services. The idea of the packages that you're going to get, you want to look at it and say, where does it apply if you're in the States? And from what I've been talking to my friends in the States, you want to make sure that you look at your state and then ask yourself, how much business am I doing in different states and how does the insurance apply to different states? Does it fit the narrative for all of the insurances, for all the states and the rules and applicable laws? So make sure you're covered with everything you're doing. APA. What these guys do is they have a group plan. It's like a membership plan for a whole bunch of different things that you can literally sign up for, and you get different benefits. You're getting a Pro ID card, things like chapter membership benefits, portfolio reviews, APA Pro to hire, so something where you can like showcase all your stuff. There is legal referrals, national payroll, and then of course professional insurance plan. So when you sign up to this, they have when you click on any of these, they will have the ability for you to access different things at a better rate, you would say. So when you click over to the APA Business Insurance for Pro Photographers and you scroll down, you're met with the team here, and they do professional business insurance and then student educator insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And what you will find is that you get the camera equipment insurance, the general liability, and then of course you can get coverage for a workers' compensation insurance, which is a great thing you got to look at and think about. Compensation insurance is awesome. Depending on where you are in the world, it works differently. And you want to make sure that you look at it and say, well, what kind of insurance do I need in case something happens? So I look at it and say, do I have a risk of something happening to me, and what kind of coverage? Kind of like life insurance, you want to have something like disability insurance. And this is what this idea would be. Well, what happens if I can't work? Do I have coverage, and will it pay my bills until I can work? I want to make sure that this is very clear. You want to make the impact of whatever you select good enough for you to survive at least 6 months to a year, because you never know what could happen. Just look at like what happened on the bus with the Rams there, where the lady fell off the bus and that fractured her back. Oh man, that would be like 8 months at a minimum if you didn't have severe injuries, because like you're going to take everything super slow. Now imagine you fracture to a point where you can't walk. Then what? Your whole life changes. That's like a 5-year thing. I don't know. It's just crazy. And I've seen some very bad situations. I've coached people through some bad situations. I really believe in this kind of insurance if in case something happens. You never know what's going to happen. Okay, never. My situation. I sliced my hand here. I was out for 4 months in a cast like this. I couldn't do anything. I was SOL, as they say, as the kids say. So something to think about as you're moving forward and making plans for what you need in coverage. And this is a good opportunity. Now, there are different group associations in Canada as well. I would be looking at those and saying, is that worth it? And put up the price plans to make sure they make sense for you. I'm pretty sure you can go to these companies, and even though you don't sign up for one of these groups, you can still get a quote. It just, you won't get that 20 or 30% off that they offer. But in some cases, the payment fee that you pay may not be enough. The Chamber of Commerce has similar stuff, For businesses, I have like certain insurances through the Chamber of Business, Chamber of Commerce, the business insurance, and it just makes sense to go there because the group benefits are so low that the offset of that monthly fee is there, and we're good to go. Now, the PPA is the Professional Photographers of America. What these guys do, they're an association where photographers, I think it's like over 30,000, are registered under this membership. You get a whole bunch of different aspects of benefits, education, events, magazines, showcasing different things. And I just want to highlight the benefits that come with it. You have insurance, certification, education, copyright stuff, discounts. There's a whole bunch of things that you should be looking at. Copyright is an important one. Again, I'm going to be probably covering this in a different video. We're going to stick with insurance here. So I'm going to open up the different ones here. And what you get here is automatically $15,000 equipment coverage. You have $50 flat deductible for equipment repairs. And if you need to replace it for equipment loss, it's $350 flat fee. So the idea is that this comes with it. If you need more, because you have more than 15,000, then you would just join the APA and then contact the insurance partner here, the Locked in Affinity, and they would provide a quote for more equipment. Again, you get this within that monthly fee as a member of the association. Now, when you look at data loss, negligence, and malpractice protection, this would be similar to that professional liability. They package it into one. They offer this within the program. I'm not sure the details of it. You do need to check with them. But the reality is there's enough there that they think is average with what would happen in the industry. So make sure you check with them and make sure if you want to add more that you go for it. Now, at the same time, there is the photographer general liability insurance that is similar to that liability coverage we were talking about with the other packages. Now you can apply for this. You can get coverage for $225 per year with the membership if you do have the membership, so they do decrease it, and it covers you with a whole bunch of different things. And of course, you can pick other aspects that you want within the program. Now, some things that you see here, up to 2 million aggregate, 1 million per occurrence, things like this is where you got to look at, and you might want to like beef it up when you take this on. But I mean, if you're just starting out, you're just getting going, you need to analyze that, see what is worth it for you. So again, there's all these other benefits, and I mean, you come into this and you think to yourself, well, what's the cost here? It's $27 a month. So if you think about it, based on how much you are spending for different things, if they're going to offer you a good deal because you're part of that, even if you customize it, and you look at this and you say, if I don't need anything right off the bat, but I just go by this $335, that is something that you're getting off of this total package as a discount, and because you're with the PPA, so you're going to get more of a discount no matter what. Totally worth it in my opinion. For everybody outside, Canadians, international, I did check for Canadian membership with them, and they do not have the insurance coverage for Canadians. You have to be an American resident. That's what they told me. So I didn't ask specifically for international, but that they said U.S. resident. So that's where we are at with that. Now, I'm not going to cover copyright fully, but I just wanted to show you this so you are aware. When you join this group, they will give you information on how to protect yourself with copyright, understand the different pieces of legislation that exist in the U.S. clearly, but they'll probably have Canadian stuff in here as well, and probably international from the looks of it. Now, I will go into more details in future videos, so do subscribe on copyright, on trademarks, things that you should be looking at as a photographer, videographer, any kind of creative when you're looking at working with clients and your brand and your image as it relates to you doing work for people when it comes to copyright and trademark. It is up to you. You are liable as a professional, especially when you start making money. So this is something that I'm going to reserve for future videos. So again, please do subscribe, and you'll see some of these videos that are super boring yet super important. Last but not least, you will see information on Fstoppers with some articles here when you start doing your journey, and they do talk about similar stuff like the DSLR video shooter, where they go into the home contents policy, protect your bubble policies with that company, and then of course the photographer member association questions and the insure my equipment. So there's a lot of different pro tips that everybody will have. I suggest everybody looks at all these different individuals. Do your research. Make sure you're finding an opportunity there that makes sense for you based on what you're seeing, based on where you are located, and based on what you're going to be trying to do with your business and where you're growing it to. And I know this was a long video, so my intention is to either make another channel where I'm breaking down my longer videos and making clips for them, or providing them on this channel and make a whole bunch of clips specifically for this kind of thing because it's so long. However, I do have Mentors Approach as well, where I'll probably be talking more about this stuff and breaking down a lot of this information there as I grow out Mentors Approach. Now, Mentors Approach will be a course catalog filled with information that you're going to need to grow your business down the road. And I want to just put everything together and grow that aspect of community within that program. So I will be launching that soon. If you do want to join into that and get the opportunity there to communicate with others as we grow that community, to get the guidance you need as you move forward to answer like questions like I answered today that most people won't know about and you just need those quick answers, please join into the mailing list down below. I'm going to try my best to accommodate everybody as we get going and make sure that everything works smoothly. But that's the intent of there, and to grow the course catalog in a way that helps everybody with their businesses. Of course, get the information you need, ask the questions you need before you jump into any insurance. Go consult a lawyer, go find an accountant to talk to you about the different aspects of this idea of insurance and corporations versus what you might be doing now as a small business or personal. Look at the scenarios, see the costs that are going to come with everything, and make a good decision for yourself to protect yourself as you get growing in the direction you want to be growing. Of course, share this with anybody that might be looking at insurance, or somebody who doesn't have insurance, and you're like, you need insurance, buddy. Okay, they might get a lot of value out of this video, so please share it with them instead of trying to explain to them insurance. Just, tell them, like, watch this first and then we'll talk about it. Okay, and of course, like to help the algorithm, subscribe, and check out these 2 videos.